Hi there. I'm thrilled to be speaking at the Responsible Innovation Summit. So thank you for joining. I want to introduce myself and then delve into some tips and tricks around communication and communicating effectively when it comes to sustainability and your business. So my name is Fiona Donnellan and I found my public relations agency, Sustainable PR, in 2019. I have over 11 years experience working in PR, journalism, communications and copywriting. And this year I'm also a climate ambassador, which is great. In 2019, I decided to go out on my own after working agency side. I wanted to work with smart, eco-conscious brands that care about the planet and who are driving change. My current client list includes Etsy, Volvo, their fully electric car, minimal waste store Reusey, ethical fashion brand Grown Clothing, bamboo toothbrush Bambooth, and many more. All who have sustainability at their core and who want to do better for the next generations. I have expertise working with Irish startups in particular who want to have their story heard and grab consumers' attention. In short, I get my clients featured on TV, on radio, on podcasts, in newspapers and magazines, and featured online. This is just an example of the work I've done with Pat Kane of Reusey, which is a minimal waste store. She has a store online at reusey.ie and a bricks and mortar store in Foxrock in Dublin. Pat reached out to me when she wanted to set up her shop and she wanted to get some news features around the opening of her store. So we worked together to create a press release and I syndicated that to all my contacts in TV, in radio, online, in print. So I secured Pat features in top tier publications like the Irish Times, Examiner, the Business Post and the Irish Independent. She also featured on TV on Virgin Media and then across a whole host of online publications. So it was a really great success story in terms of PR. Another great brand that I work with is Bambooth. Again, they were just launching to market and they got me on board. And together with them, I helped them draft their story, the who, when, why of how their business came to be. And I pitched it into journalists across online, print, TV, radio, and secured them national and regional features. We also gifted some influencers the bamboo toothbrushes to try, and this was also hugely successful. They posted it on their platforms. So it was a real 360 campaign for Bambooth. So telling the right story about your sustainable business. Like with any story, in order to create a brand story or indeed a press or PR story, you have to have a strong middle, start, middle and end. The who, why, how of how your business came about, your origin story. Whether writing copy for your website or your press release, think about it in these terms. How your business came to be, that light bulb moment, your background and how you got to this point, where you are now, how your business is looking and thriving, and what's setting you apart. And finally, plans for the future, the next chapter in your story. So often I see copy on websites that isn't cohesive and that doesn't match the copy on social media or in presentations or newsletter, or it's really hard to find the information you need. It should be clear and concise, streamlined, uniform. If I want that information, it's right there in front of me. Especially if I'm a journalist and I want to do a feature on you, that information should be front and center. So think about that when you're writing any comms or putting anything online about your business. Also, something to remember is using overly convoluted language. The world of climate change, climate action and sustainable business might be second nature to a lot of us working in the space, but think about your customers, potential customers, journalists, and then eventually people reading that newspaper or watching that feature online. Don't use words that they mightn't understand or might feel intimidated by. Use plain English just to describe your business. A rule of thumb I like to use is a 12-year-old should be able to read and understand the copy you're writing. It seems simple, but just look at all the copy that exists for your business currently and think, is it a bit too hard to understand? What makes sustainability communication different from the usual communication strategy? For communication to be effective, it should be interesting and educational. This applies to all communications. So the difference between sustainable business communications is probably their sustainable kudos versus other brands who mightn't have that authenticity. My clients, they're not just jumping on the bandwagon by adding eco words like sustainable or organic to their comms. That's at their core. That's what they do. They're not just ticking boxes. So all my clients have extremely interesting stories to tell, but it's my job to craft the story and get them noticed and ensure that it's authentic and there's no greenwashing. What makes them stand out when I pitch to journalists is the fact that they're purpose-driven, they're finding solutions, they're pushing the boat out when it comes to their business, and they're leaders in the field. So they're instantly going to be a hook for news stories, and they will stand out to journalists in that field. For example, bamboo. So as I mentioned, it's a bamboo toothbrush. Doesn't sound overly glamorous or interesting. However, it's the spin you put on it. So when you start communicating about it in terms of its footprint, a plastic toothbrush in comparison could take 400 plus years to degrade, while bamboo toothbrushes can be popped in your commercial compost bin. So focus on things like that. It makes it more interesting. And then I also focus on the creators of bamboo, Neve and Joe. So it's their story and their background and how they got to this point. Because again, it's that interesting and educational element that I mentioned. One thing I do avoid is preaching. I want people to read about cool products, cool services, see them featured on television or online, and think that's such an easy swap, that's planet saving. It's so much more effective than somebody who is being preached at or told this is what you need to do. It's that persuasion to live a more sustainable life. They kind of draw that conclusion for themselves. It's the same with any form of communication. Persuasion kind of works. If you're forced into something, you know yourself, if someone's yelling these facts and figures or someone is preaching, there is a tendency to switch off or just have negative musings about it. So this idea of persuading and people getting to that endpoint themselves is really effective. So I've talked about kind of press and website copy, but also you're communicating the minute you're on social media as well. You're communicating your brand message. So perhaps it's an obvious one, but social media is a great platform to speak about what you're doing and the power of your company. But just some tips and tricks here. Post regularly, engage with fellow activists, fellow businesses, and build up a community of like-minded people. Post interesting facts, stats, this will drive engagement. Ask questions, do polls, and again, this will increase engagement. Plan and curate your feed. So each day have something that you want to talk about, a topic. It could be a fact about the climate emergency. You could have climate chats on a Wednesday on IGTV with a fellow business person. Climate Action Friday. You could highlight a person or a cool group in your community that's doing things and how you can join in. Importantly, use hashtags so like-minded people can find your content. And use all the features that social media offer. So video, reels, stories, any new feature that they're rolling out, get on board, give it a try, and get noticed. Now, this is around communication toolkit. So If your business has a story to tell, how do you go about it? Where do you even start? For example, if you're a business who's planning an event, how will you get that out there? How will you effectively communicate it to your community, what you're doing? Well, you could set up a Facebook event page and promote it through LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, set up an Eventbrite page as well. And then this is where public relations comes in, or PR comes in. You could contact your local newspaper and tell them what you're up to, the who, where, when and why of your event, and they might send a photographer to cover it. They might feature it in the paper. Also, you could send them imagery and some copy post-event of how it all went. And again, there's opportunity there for them to feature it in the paper. So it's a simple and effective way to get your message out there. And yeah, it's a great way to get your message to the masses rather than just on social media. It's kind of a combination of these two things. So if I wanted to create the ultimate sustainability communications toolkit, what would I need? So I've mentioned before a press release, a one-page document with who, what, why, any events that are coming up, newsworthy elements of your business. So that could be an award, that could be a new certification, a new appointment, a new product, a new service, anything that seems like it might be a hook for press or newsworthy. That's what you need to highlight in your press release. Then an image bank. So build up a bank of high resolution imagery that support your business and what it does. This could be headshots of the team, lifestyle shots of products and services in action. It's often easier to sell a story if you've strong photographs to accompany it. Makes sense. I'd also suggest setting out goals. So decide your communication goals for the year ahead. So just an example, I want to be featured in the Irish Times business pages in 2022. Cool. So the next step would be contacts. Keeping with that example of the Irish Times, find out who the business editor is in the Irish Times and reach out to them. Then you pitch them your story, your elevator pitch, or your press release. And then fingers crossed they pick up on the story and feature, and your goal is achieved. Building up this list of contacts is not easy. It takes time. A PR agency like myself, we already have those relationships and a direct line to the journalists. But over time, you can build up something similar and pitch in those key stories when you have them. So my advice now to you is to build up your comms kit, pitch in that story, and then you guys could have the opportunity to be featured on TV, radio, newspapers, etc., like I mentioned. But just go away and have a think about what is your hook. Ask yourself, what's your USP? What makes you newsworthy? What is your business doing that sets you apart? And that will guide you through how you talk about your business. And it feeds back into that interesting and educational. So keep those in mind when you are talking about your business, writing about your business, posting posts on social media. It's all interconnected, and when people go to look for your service online, this is the copy and comms and social media content that they see. So whatever you put out there is a representation of your business. So it should be smart and concise and uniform. But yeah, thanks for listening, and get in touch if you have any questions, because I'd love to connect. I know that was a broad spectrum of things I covered, but if there's anything specific you wanted to get feedback on, let me know and I will share my contacts with you. Thank you so much and enjoy the conference.